that's where you go wrong. Like you can still call racism, and all that other stuff that you said still be true. I don't understand why you would look at something that's overtly racist. That's not a little bit of it. That's not a hint of it. That's overtly racist, bro. Like, how can you look at that and, well, it has overtones of it? Like, especially, that's what I said in the beginning. Like, when you said that, it shocked me because I could see somebody white who was maybe racist for real saying that to try to make an excuse for it, but I couldn't see like a black dude saying, well, it's kind of, a little, not really that much. It's overtly, it's overt. It's not racist. So I just don't get it. Like I said, I agree with all the stuff you said, but then you go to there and I'd be like, hold on, bro. Is that the Trumpism in you coming out? Because you don't want him to be done did wrong or something? Is that what's coming out? Because I agree with you with everything else you said, dude. Like, and then you go there and I'd be like, no, dude, like you got two eyes. You see two monkeys up there with the president and the first lady's head on it. That's some cornball racist stuff up there, and it was meant to be racist. It ain't like they was trying to pretend maybe nobody will see this. No, they did it on purpose. Well, like, it was meant to be racist. It wasn't meant for you to think it was overtly racist. It was meant for you to think it was racist.
Okay. I came to New York City back in 1996. Spent a couple of years in Florida. Then I joined the military, and I moved around with the military. I was in Germany for about 13 years. And what you're gonna say that's not America, but here's what I'm telling you: everywhere I went to work every day was with Americans, and I lived in American communities. Mm-hmm. All right. So my dealings on a daily basis was with America. Right.
Okay, so I'm keeping on you on this same track because I want to know about this. So
that's right.
In these communities that you lived in,
yeah.
If you experienced racism, all you had to do was get a lawyer and he took care of it.
Yeah, because there are mechanisms in place to prevent it. So in the military.
Okay, well, like let me just tell you, in most communities of color, it does not work like that.
Right.
That's a very interesting point. That's an interesting point, Unpopular. I kind of get what you're saying, but because there are safeguards in place, doesn't negate the fact that they have to be in place to prevent something from happening that put the safeguards in place. That's our side of the conversation.
No, not just that. You're saying that these safeguards are in place, but you're missing the bigger picture. If you live in a neighborhood that doesn't have banks because the white government segregated the neighborhood and didn't allow banks to be put in there, and you have to go to another neighborhood to get a loan, and you get charged a higher rate because of your skin color, because there's no bank locally, or your property value is lower because of the segregation of the red line that happened before your time. No lawyer can fix your property value. There are economic injustices that are in place that are different from what you're seeing. And that's what the majority of us have to live through in our neighborhood. If the schools in the segregated neighborhoods don't have the funding, that's an economic injustice that lawyers can't fix. The school doesn't have funding because the property values are lower, because the government of that city separated the white from the Mexican from the black, and they all have different property values. There's no fixing that. That's an injustice that has to be overcome through hard work. Yes, but that's not something that can be fixed, and it's not something you can walk in, however many years you've been here. If you haven't been here long enough to notice those things, then that means that there are other people in this country that have experiences different than you, that are experiencing the economic injustices of racism that are ingrained into this country.
That's why I asked where you were from and where you grew up at, like when you came over. That's because I was trying to figure out like what experiences that you went through, because like for a majority of the brown and black community, it does not work like that.
I'm wondering
if get a lawyer. He was racist.
I'm wondering if you've heard this, Unpopular. You spent some time in New York City. You originally immigrated there.
I came straight there.
Basically, the entire public transportation system in New York City, and then they modeled the rest of the country off of this, was designed by a gentleman, I believe his name was Robert Moses, to keep black people away from it and keep black people away from the parks. And it's still designed that way. And a lot of those neighborhoods remain not racially segregated anymore, but you certainly still have predominantly white and black neighborhoods decades, a century after these systems were designed. And that is where you move to. So whether you saw it or not, it's there.
So,
Well,
and then I'm sorry, can I say one thing? So I think you make an interesting point. I do get what you're saying as far as like, you came here, you worked hard. I feel like that you're a proud black man. You know what I mean? And that you're not going to allow any of the racism or systemic racism or anything like that get in the way of what you want to do. And I applaud you for that, brother. I really do. I applaud you for that. I do think that though there is systemic areas of racism that do kind of that do hold us back, And now I was one of those people that kind of felt like before I met you that, maybe because you came here, you immigrated here, that maybe that's what was kind of shaping your opinion in a lot of ways. But I didn't know for sure, you know what I mean? But you got to understand, like, even me, okay? So I work in the tech industry, the higher I go up, the less black people I see. But I live in an area full of black people. I'm sure Doc when I first started working in my tech job, Dr. O'Dilly, he was the only black doctor that I knew, that was coming, that I spoke to at my work regularly. My father, he became a teacher because he wanted to be there because he said black kids don't have any black teachers. He wanted to represent that. He said, especially black male teachers. So I get what you're saying. I'm serious. I applaud you for that because yes, I do feel like there's a certain area within us that we do have to, pull ourselves up, work hard and everything like that. It's just the part where we have to work twice as hard that I don't like. You see what I'm saying, brother? Does that kind of make sense?
yeah, I understand what you're saying, but here's another thing
Mm-hmm.
that I hear people say frequently, right? Like for instance, your statement that you just made there, where you said you have to work twice as hard as everybody else, right? How many white people that you know, right, who you can personally compare yourself to and compare the things that both of you had to do and determine that you really had to work as hard? Or is that just something that we've been told, right? Because what I'm hearing is, in this life, right, there's imperfection, right? Nowhere in the world you go will you ever find perfection. And if ever, let's suppose for 1 minute everybody in America was blue and everybody looked the same, you would still have inequalities between all of these blue people. And here's what people will start to do. People will start to say, oh, did you notice that all the guys with white pants always get discriminated against in a certain way? And because, oh, shoot, yeah, that's true. Everybody in white pants get discriminated against. It must be because they have white pants on, right? And I think that a lot of that is what happens in America right now, right? Because I think there are so many systems in place for people to be successful that all you have to do, graduate high school, try not to have children before you're ready for it, get married, be part of a two-income home, find a job, and you're on your way up. The fact that you may have to struggle a little harder than others doesn't mean that it will not be possible, because in an imperfect world, you will never find equality anywhere. I heard Thomas Sowell say one time, Thomas Sowell said, you know, when we were growing up, we had real discrimination. The Ku Klux Klan would burn a cross. I'll be quick. Okay, I'll be quick. The Ku Klux
No,
Klan,
you're fine. I just want to say something after you're done, real quick. Go ahead.
yeah, the Ku Klux Klan is burning a cross on your lawn, lynchings. You can't get jobs with the government. Social security is not being given to you. Thomas Sowell said the schools in our neighborhoods were badly underfunded, and we would be in the worst sheds in the neighborhood. He said, but you know what? We took that as a challenge, and we were better than many of the white schools, right? Today, in urban cities, many of the schools are like war zones. Teen pregnancy is very high, absent fathers and everything. And you have so many different factors why Black people are not doing well. But everybody just reverts to the argument that all of the suffering is because of racism. And I just can't buy into that.
Okay. No, and I hear you there, but you got to think historically, right? Okay, so I never understood why my mom made such a big deal in buying a home. Like, it was like her dream. She had to buy a home, you know? And then it hit me when I started learning a little bit about my history and redlining and how Black people couldn't own homes, or, you know, they couldn't get loans, and, you know, or they got the loans that they got were predatory, and basically the homes got ripped away from them after they paid for them. So you got to think that a home builds generational wealth. Okay, I'm just using this one example. A home builds generational wealth. So we were systematically kept from purchasing homes, whereas white people, they weren't, right? You know what I mean? And they were to hand down these homes to their children, but we couldn't do that. We couldn't do those type of things due to the obstacles in place. So I get what Thomas Sowell is saying. Yeah, it's a challenge and everything like that. But what I'm saying is that challenge shouldn't be there. It should be a challenge. And I get you saying it's an imperfect world, and you're right. But it's up to us to try to make it as close to perfect as possible. So a lot of the things that are affecting the Black community aren't things that happen just today. You got to think we're only like, what, 80 years? My mom grew up, and she grew up during segregation. My mom did, you know. We're only one generation away from Jim Crow. So things aren't really, I mean, yes, they're moving forward, but they're not all the way there. And it's going to take time to heal the wounds of the racism of the past 400 years to get us to where we need to be, to where you want to be at, into that more perfect type of world. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh yeah, I'm with you. And hear me. Not for 1 minute do I ever argue that there's no racism, or that Black people in America didn't have a tough time. That's not my argument at all. I'll be an idiot to come here and tell you that. Right? I'm from the West Indies, right? And my father told me that his grandfather was a slave who came directly from Africa, right? So I'm the descendant of slaves, right? I'm the descendant of slaves, of course, by my complexion. I guess you could tell that I'm also the descendant of some Europeans, right? I found out that, but it's only about 10% or so, right? So my argument is not that there was no racism. I'm saying that the systems that we have in place are enough to make Black people climb out and do really, really well. And when we find the instances of specific racism, call me, give me a call, and I'll be right there with you.
I did, and you said it had overtones. It wasn't racist, but it had overtones. That's what confuses me, brother. Like, what is a racist overtone to a Black man? That's what I want to understand.
I'll answer you in a bit, and I'll be right there with you, Sean. All right. A meme, even though it's from the White House, I'm saying yes, it's inappropriate. I don't like it. Right. But in the current environment where we are, right, where and I know who we're dealing with, and they like
You
to rub.
raise you raised
Listen,
the
I'm
point
not
about
I'm
the
not saying.
environment and
Listen,
Trump being
I'm
like a
not saying.
provocateur. Why does he have to do that?
Listen, I'm
He's
not
the
here to
president. Why?
listen, my friends. I'm not here to justify everything Donald Trump says
I
or
don't think
does.
you are, but you're the one that said
I'm not going to be
provocateur.
I'm not going to be a Trump apologist. Do I support Trump? Yes, yes, I do. And I'm not saying that my opinion is based on my support for Trump. I'm thinking I'm thinking big picture, and I'm sorry, but in my mind, yes, again, I don't like it, but I'm not gonna lose sleep over this. I'm gonna keep on moving. I'll say, Mr. President, come on, do better, man. And you think I do not believe that Trump is saying black people are monkeys. I just don't. I believe that Trump is stirring up stuff because that's what he does, and I don't like it.
Why? Why does he have to do
I'll
that?
keep on
He's
moving.
the president.
Yeah,
He's the president. Why does he need to be a provocateur? He's
I-
a lame duck president. He could sit
Oh,
there.
okay,
and
well,
just
let me
You
make
know
ask.
why he
policy.
does it. He does it to distract us from the other things that he's doing.
What would he
that's
have
my
to
line
do?
of argument.
What would he have to do to show you that he's racist? What could he do? Like, okay, he's posted pictures. I mean, you see how he embraces the white nationalists and
He's called
the
Somalians garbage
I mean,
people.
yeah, I mean, he's done so many things. I'm saying, okay, and this one yesterday was just the latest in the things of, I guess you would call it racial overtones things. What would he have to do for you to say, you know what, he is racist? Well, I mean, what would be your definition of something racist that he could do that would show you that he's racist? Besides
If he-
posting stuff and saying
If he
stuff.
has policy that deliberately shuts out black people is one.
He does.
But
He
being
does.
being
Like
He
what?
shut out
Okay, so I'm
37
asking
countries.
I'm asking a specific question now.
Well,
Like
let
He's
me ask
trying
you
to
that.
roll back
What
all
policy?
those protections that you talked
Like
about.
What
what?
policies do we have that are specifically based around black people? What's a black person policy?
Well, you
The
see,
travel ban
I
against shithole countries that he propagated.
Right.
I don't.
He stopped countries that were predominantly black, right, or Muslim. I mean, the fact is that is a racist policy. When you say
See-
I don't want you because of your essentially your skin color or your religion, that's racist.
I can
Okay,
I
so
can totally
let me-
get
let me-
with
can
your
I-
whole
can I answer this
kumbaya.
question?
Hold on, let me hold on a second, bro.
Okay.
I can totally understand your whole kumbaya. We shouldn't have racism. I totally agree. And the stuff you say about we should be doing this and we should be doing that and we should work hard, all that is true. But then you can't look at race and be like, well, that's not right. I mean, that's where you go wrong. Like you can still call racism and all that other stuff that you said still be true. I don't understand why you would look at something that's overtly racist. That's not a little bit of it. That's not a hint of it. That's overtly racist, bro. Like, how can you look at that and, well, it has overtones of it? Like, especially, that's what I said in the beginning. Like, when you said that, it shocked me because I could see somebody white who was maybe racist for real saying that to try to make an excuse for it. But I couldn't see like a black dude saying, well, it's kind of, a little, not really that much. It's overtly, it's overt. It's not racist. So I just don't get it. Like I said, I agree with all the stuff you said, but then you go to there and I'd be like, hold on, bro. Is that the Trumpism in you coming out? Because you don't want him to be done did wrong or something? Is that what's coming out? Because I agree with you with everything else you said, dude. Like, and then you go there and I'd be like, no, dude, like, I mean, like you got two eyes. You see two monkeys up there with the president and the first lady's head on it. That's some cornball racist stuff up there, and it was meant to be racist. It ain't like they was trying to pretend maybe nobody will see this. No, they did it on purpose.
Well,
like, it was meant to be racist. It wasn't meant for you to think it was overtly racist. It was meant for you to think it was racist.
Okay. So here's what I say about that. I get where you're coming from. I respect it. right? But here's what I also know. I also know that we make excuses for racism that goes the other way. And when Trump came into power, I heard Wanda Sykes up on the stage calling him an orangutan. I heard people call him an orange orangutan on the public airways.
It's
You
not a
know,
racist
and I,
That's not
trope
racist.
when you refer
you,
to
you, you
a
see,
white
so
dude
this is
because
the problem. We think that because an insult has a racist overtone, that somehow that is worse than insults
it is
like
worse.
calling
Maybe
him.
you,
If I
okay,
if I
maybe
paint
this
my
is,
face
hold on.
black,
I think
that's
I'm
racist.
hold on. I think I'm understanding for a second, and I'll let you go, V. I think I'm understanding it is because you didn't grow up over here, and you got to understand that like we don't have that like there's been caricatures like black people were called monkeys. That's is the monkey thing is the same as the N-word thing, bro.
Yeah, they were
It's
salt
the
and pepper
same.
shakers.
Like in our society, in our culture over here, that's the same thing, bro. You don't have to like if you call me a monkey or an N-word, it's the same thing. You're gonna catch it.
Or boy.
Yeah, boy,
Bunch
it's
of-
the same thing. You're trying to separate it. Like, well, he called him a monkey. White people being monkeys and black people being monkeys are two different things. That's
just
a
a little
slur.
Yeah,
Just a
let me-
little bit. Wait, real quick, V. Just a little perspective here. I just want to tell you a quick story. My mama, right? So my son, my 5-year-old, he's big into Curious George, right? So I'm at my mom's house, and I put Curious George on so that he can go to sleep. My mom says to me, "Man, I hate that show," and I'm like, "Why, Mom? It's just a Curious George, a man in the yellow hat." She said, "Because growing up, that's all the kids called me was a monkey," and she can't stand that show to this day because it's got a monkey in it. And that's what I'm trying to. I think that's what I was trying to express to you earlier about the history behind a lot of this stuff and why it was so bad to us when we saw that image coming from the highest level in the country here.
It's
in the
a
nation.
slur. It's not an overture. Like you got to try to figure out what I'm saying here. Like it wink, wink. Only the people that know. It's basically like saying the N-word or any other black slur. That's what that was. It wasn't an overture. So like I said, I agree with you wholeheartedly with all the other stuff you said, except for that part. Like that's where we fell off the rails. And I don't know if that's just your Trump defense in you, but like, dude, that was racist. It wasn't overtly racist. It was blatantly racist. I mean, and like I said, I don't know if where you grew up at, you don't understand that's a slur in the black community. I mean, depending on the black person you mess with, might get mad at you for saying that. A black person might get mad at you for calling them a monkey.
Is it okay
Go ahead.
to
Go ahead, stand up.
is it okay to actually say the N-word on your show?
Yeah, if you want to. I mean,
As an
on
example,
you.
I remember
Not for Jim.
I remember when I was in,
Yeah, I won't say it.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in basic training, right? I remember when I was in basic training. I remember this white guy was talking, and this was in 1997. And I remember listening to this white guy, right? And he's like, "Yeah, man," and he's like, I don't know where he's from, but he's talking, and he's like, "Yeah, man," and N-words be, yeah, man, these N-words. And he's talking with a bunch of black people around and everything. And nobody was offended. I remember this so well. I wasn't in basic training. I was at the reception battalion. And this guy was talking, "Yeah, man, and these N-words. And I was like, oh, they're just talking, right? And nobody was offended. And I remember a time when people used to say the word N-word on TV. And depending on the context, it was not a big deal. And then all of a sudden, no matter what the context is, right? No matter what the context is, the N-word became anathema. So you could call somebody a mother effer, you could call them whatever the heck you want. But the one word that dare not comes out of your that dare not come out of your mouth, that one word in all of the English language in America is the N word, right? And I'm saying, I get it, you know. I don't like the N word. I think it's terrible, right? But when I put again, when I put this whole thing in perspective, yes, I looked at what the president did and I say, first of all, it's a major distraction, right? But in the grand picture where it's supposed to be, he's king of the jungle and everybody else are the animals. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Okay, moving on. I just can't stay. I just can't stay in that place where I'm acting like it's the most moral crisis in the world, and you know that's just the way it is. It is for me, and I know others who feel the same way too. I know I'm in the minority. I know this, right? But it's not because I don't care about racism. I do whenever it shows its ugly head in more meaningful ways. To me, and to me, this is not one of the ways. I'd be right there.
I think the leader of the free world blasting racism over the internet is a big moral crisis. I think when the leader of the free world feels justified in doing that, and then his press corps is going to defend it, I do think that's a moral crisis.
I think some people have trouble identifying racism. Unpopular when you said if someone you referenced someone calling Donald Trump an orangutan. And the reason why there's a huge difference is if I colored my face in blackface, that's racist because of the history of blackface. But if I colored myself white, that's not racist. It may be weird, but it's not racist because there's no history of whiteface. But there's a long history back going to the 1800s that when you make yourself look darker than you are of blackface, and because of minstrels and all the performances and Jim Crow laws, that's racist as hell. And it's identifying that's a problem, and perhaps you don't identify those things. I don't know why, but you don't.
I think Unpopular is making the point under all of this that there are bigger fish to fry ultimately. And believe me when I say I haven't spent my day worried about Donald Trump in this. I think he's a pedophile. I think that's more important. I think he's putting us in wars that are ridiculous. That's more important. And ultimately, Rashawn knows this for sure, I think we're a slave to another country entirely. And he's okay with that. I think those things are more important.
Agreed.
This is like hey, man, did you see this off the wall thing that happened? But I'm not going to go march on it. So I get your point. There's bigger things. But it doesn't mean that this thing didn't happen. This piece of character didn't slip out.
And I'm not saying that he should go out and do a protest or anything. I'm just saying,
right,
okay,
exactly.
if you know somebody feels like that about your people, why would you lend him any of your support? I don't care what he's talking about. I can't even hear you anymore once I know that you don't have my people's best interests in mind. You basically I'm not listening to nothing you say, much less give you my support. What would that look like? That's crazy.
But I think it's
Please
fair.
talk about me more. I mean, even Tim Scott has come around finally.
Tim Scott's trash. But that's another topic for another day.
You didn't hear what he said, though? He said the dude
he got
was
pissed
right.
off at this?
Yeah, he said this is the most
Unpopular.
racist thing he's ever seen come out the White House.
Unpopular. I do understand your point overall about there's bigger things that are more important. It's just this conversation just kind of went this way. But tomorrow, we're going to be talking about other stuff.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah,
here's what I think happens a lot, right? We love to refer to the history of racism and dismiss anything that could be racist that's happening now. So my friend here, Shelby Beer, said there's no history of whiteface. Could it be the beginning of racism? You refuse to consider that, right? Because in your mind, whiteface could never be about racism, right? There's no way because there's no history. Well, perhaps it's the beginning of racism, right? But we're willing to refer to every history and every bad thing that happened in the past, but stuff that's actually happening now that we could perhaps name as racism. Oh, don't worry, dismiss it because it's the wrong group of people. I'm not with that, my friends.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I actually think it's a solid point. To be honest with you,
Who's the comedian? Who's the comedian that recently did Whiteface? He's a real funny guy.
Drewski.
Yeah.
Drewski. Yeah.
He did Whiteface, and
Yeah.
some people didn't like it, and they said, "Hey, man, that's racist." I think you make a valid point again. You make a lot of good points, by the way. Your name's unpopular, so it just feels like you're unpopular. But you got
I
some
don't
good-
think a
you got
lot of
some
what you
good
have to say
points.
is unpopular.
I think you got some really good points. But what I was going to say is that he did that, right? And it's hard for all of us who have been on the oppressed side to think the oppressor is now somehow oppressed when they still run everything. Like they still are in charge of all the so I guess that's something that just humanity, especially in America, has to like somehow come to grips with. Because you're right. He did Whiteface. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, man, I think he's towing the line there. But you know,
I do think history has a lot to do with it. I'm not saying that there's no racism towards white people, but in this particular context, I think history matters more than just saying, putting a false equivalency. Well, you did whiteface and this guy did blackface, so it's even. But going back to your overall point, which is that oppression should just be beaten by being better. I just want to quickly throw out a real story that happened to me when I was a PM at a company, and this was, I think, 2004. And basically, I was in charge of hiring and many different departments, customer service, technical developers, and I had over 300 positions to fill. And one of them, the biggest job I had to fill was 20 different computer engineers. And so I would present my list of people that I wanted to come in for second interviews. And this time, the second interview is when you meet with other leaders, like the CEO. And I remember going into the room to the CEO and saying, here is my list of my top candidates for this computer engineering position. And I remember when he read one of the names out, and I had a very black sounding name, he took that and he put it on the bottom of the list, and then he looked at the other ones. And that is the definition of systemic racism, because no one else is going to see that, right? No one else, like, I'm not outing him and telling his name. No one else is knowing that. But that's the reason why affirmative action in DEI exists, is because what he did in that room happens millions and millions of times over the past 100 years. And so in order to remedy that situation, that's why Joe Biden did what he did. And that's why affirmative action existed. And that's why DEI existed, is because all the people who were never given a chance just because they were black, the fix is, hey, let's give this guy a chance. I don't think it's good enough to say, just be better, just be a better black person. I don't think it's good enough to say, just be a better minority, no matter what type of minority you are, because those things happen every day in America, and it's upon all of us to make sure they don't happen.
So you make a really good point, because okay, so I'll tell you, I work at a software company, right? So before I even say that, my mom almost named me Sean because she didn't want my name to be Rushan on job applications because they would know I was black. But so my current job, I got it. I went in and I interviewed with the white manager, and he didn't hire me, which is cool. We're cool now and everything like that. But I went back in because the manager over him was a black man, and he interviewed me, and he went ahead and hired me. And I think that a lot of times what happens is that the structures that are in place are that, because you see more white males or white people in higher positions and everything like that, they feel comfortable hiring somebody that looks like them. You know, they feel better about John. But, you know, Rashawn over there, I don't know, because I don't know if I'll be able to vibe with him like I can with John. So I'm going to go ahead and not give Rashawn a chance, and John gets pushed up to the top. And I think that's part of the problem, too, as well. And I think that's some of the things that, you know, DEI and affirmative action and everything like that were put in place to help. But I think another thing that I want to say about affirmative action is a lot of people have this misconception that it was just for Black people. And really, affirmative action helped white women probably, the most, you know. So I mean, it disabled people and everything like that. But they put it out there like, hey, this is just for Black people, and that's how they marketed it so that people would attack it and try to tear it down. But really, it helped a lot more than Black people. In fact, I think people that weren't Black benefited more than just Black people. So I don't know. I just want to throw that out there.
LGBTQ individuals have a bigger presence in just visible presences in workforces nowadays, particularly in my field. But and it's been beneficial just to have all those different voices and experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want Doc, I want to ask you, because I remember we had a conversation about it when you were in like med school or something like that. I can't remember what it was specifically that you said, but you ran into like a barrier as well, didn't you? Or am I forgetting? Or am I mistaken?
Med school was 20 years ago. I had patients who were overtly racist. I don't want this Black doctor taking care of me. You know, guy's bleeding out. He's in the emergency room. He needs care, but he's got enough strength left to be racist and say he doesn't want, doesn't want a Black doctor taking care of him. That's how it was 20 years ago. Definitely Unpopular has some interesting points, and there are bigger fish to fry. But when you look at economic injustices and systemic racism, they're just not things that you can pull up by your bootstraps and overcome, at least not the majority of people. There are people who can. But when you talk about inherited wealth and the people for generations that were allowed to own property and how that property accumulates value and passes down, when a minority passes away, they're more likely to pass on debt than they are to pass on equity. And when a non-minority passes away, they're much more likely to pass on wealth. And that's not something that, you can arrive here and overcome, or that you can work your way out of. That's a generational divide that's going to take many more generations to overcome. And those are the types of things where I take issue with, there's just not an easy way around those things.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna end it with this question for all of you guys. What does the next president look like in 2028? We'll start off with you, Unpopular Politics.
I don't know. It all depends on. So MAGA is a big deal, right? And I think that people have grown so tired over the years of. I remember when I first came to the States, one thing I noticed is Republicans would always, every time they get accused of racism, they put their finger in their mouth and go on the ground and rock back and forth and come out with all different kinds of condemnations and do everything in their power to show that they're not racist. And I always used to ask myself, why are these people always apologizing for accusations of racism against them? And then Trump came on the scene, and Trump was like a bulldog. Trump is like, you calling me racist? Whatever, man. And because of how Trump conducted himself, unapologetic with everything, even when he's wrong, unapologetic, MAGA got a little more brave, right? And so, whereas in the past, somebody like Trump would affect the next presidency in a negative way, I don't think this time around it's going to happen, because people are like, look, you know what? it seems like no matter what we do, how much improvement we make, how far we go, you keep calling us racist, white supremacists, Nazi, Gestapo, you name it. Well, we don't care. We've had enough. And so now MAGA is solidified. And in the next 4 years, I think there's a good chance of it being another MAGA candidate. But we've had enough of Trump and his histrionics. And I don't think that America could survive the histrionics of Trump for another 4 years, right? And so we get another MAGA version, but more gentlemanly, if we were to get him at all. I think the Democrat Party will have to come really, really good to win the presidency in 2028.
Do you consider yourself MAGA?
Me? No,
Yes.
no. I'm not MAGA. I just like a lot of the policies. I lean towards conservative policies more than I lean towards leftist policies, and because of that, I support the candidate who's in power now. But MAGA.
Okay, V. What's the next president look like?
I think it's going to be a white male. I think if Democrats are smart, they cannot run anyone else. In reality, let's be honest here. You've got 37% of Americans that still support Donald Trump, and I would say that a good large percentage of them are pretty freaking racist. And so if you want to have any chance at all of not having J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio as the next president of the United States, the Democratic Party has to put a white male in that position. Now, I personally wanted J.B. Pritzker, but now that his cousin has been shown, I know a lot of people don't like him, but we can have that discussion another day. But his cousin has now been named in the Epstein file, so I'm pretty sure that's thrown out of the window. Gavin Newsom has a lot of good speeches, but I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. I am more progressive than Gavin Newsom. So I don't know who it's going to be, but I can guarantee you from the Democratic side, he's going to have a decade. He's going to be white.
Okay.
Doc?
Yeah, I mean, the country is where the country is. It's going to be it's going to be a sea of white, younger males. I don't think we're going to see anybody under 60 in the front runner unless Bernie goes for it again.
You said under or over?
Under.
Sorry, over. We're not going to see many
over.
60. Yeah, we're not going to see anybody over 60 in the top spots. I think all the leading candidates are going to be under 60. Except for Bernie. Bernie has a chance, but I think we're looking at somebody in the 40s or 50s, white male.
Okay. Jim?
What's up, Jim?
I wish it weren't so, because much like V, I'm much more progressive than this candidate. But I think the next president looks like a sleazy car salesman from California. I hope the next president looks like a middle-aged white lady from Michigan. That's another story. I think there is an LGBTQ gentleman that could be the president.
Buttigieg?
Yes, I think he's intelligent enough and
I love him, but he will never. He can't
do
win.
the. He's not even my first. He's not my first choice either. But I think he's a very intelligent man that
Who's this?
could
Peter
convince
Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg.
Oh, Buttigieg.
I also think
No
that J.D.
chance.
Vance could very well be the president. I think Marco Rubio could be the president. I think if he really put himself out there and really improved on policy, that Cory Booker could be the president. He'd have to do a lot of work in the next couple of years to get there, but he could do it because he's a very charismatic individual and, much like our last black president, an extremely good orator. So there's a lot of people out there that I think could be the next person based on kind of the profiles that they have. But if I had to, as a betting man, I think it's the sleazy car salesman from Cali.
Okay. Jesus?
Man, my heart is broken that these people are even considered.
Well, I don't like a
Potential
lot
president.
of these people.
I So I don't rock with Democrats and I don't rock with Republicans. I just always think best American for the job. Almost everybody that you guys named are Israel first candidates. I would never vote for them. I don't care what color they are. I think the next president is Thomas Massey. I think he is that disruptive to the Republican Party that if they go up and do that, you probably have Marjorie Taylor Greene up there making some noise, and all these other people making noise, JD Vance. I think as the days go by, people are starting to wake up to what this guy is about. And foreign wars is not his thing, which is not my thing. And obviously, he's the leading guy getting these files out there so we could figure out who's all corrupt. So I got a feeling that he probably can make some noise. I do reluctantly have to say Gavin Newsom because he's kind of got the bravado of someone. J.D. Pritzker used to be on the board of AIPAC, so there's no way I want him to be president. Them guys, Rubio, them guys become president, we're going to war. More so than we are now. They're just going to continue it. So,
very quick question for you.
My vote.
Do you think that Thomas Massey could run as a Republican, but have a more progressive vice president, and to kind of solidify that ticket? I haven't heard that name honestly, and it's intriguing.
I honestly think I think he might have enough momentum to. But
he's very well liked by the libertarians.
Yeah, he'll get the libertarian vote. That's probably more where I lean most of the time because they don't take money from a lot of different places. Maybe. I mean, I don't know how it would flush out, to be honest with you, but I would guess somebody else on that board, they're going to probably tell him that he's racist or something. And then like 5 minutes later, be like, I'm going to be his vice president. Kind of like Kamala did with Biden, but who knows? By the way, Cory Booker is trash too. I just had to put that out there.
I don't like him, but I think he has the profile and the charisma to do it.
That guy ain't gonna do nothing. He's a bootlicker. Get this dude up out of here.
I hate his policy. He's saying like, the best way to deal with ICE is to train them better. No, but different story though. It's not a policy thing. It's do they have the profile and do they have the riz?
That's why I think Gavin has that kind of like.
Yeah.
You were making a movie and you needed a president in it. He's probably the guy you.
I feel like I'm going to be forced to vote for him.
No, you're not forced. That's the problem. You're not forced to vote for anyone. You choose. I don't do the lesser of two evils things. I vote for who I think is the best person for the job. I'm not going to sit there. Yeah, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, let me give it to Trump because I didn't like Kamala, or let me give it to Kamala because I didn't like. Both of them take money from the same people. So no matter who's sitting up there, they ain't really running the joint. They're just a distraction, which you see by the meme we just spent an hour talking about.
Rashawn?
I gotta say, Jesus, Thomas Massey is an interesting pick, man. I hadn't thought about that one before, but that is interesting. But yeah, no, I think that the next president, no matter what, is going to be a young white male or Rubio. If it's on the Republican side, Rubio or Vance, and on the Democrat side, they're going to have to find a younger white male. I don't think they're going to run. They're going to run with the identity politics and put somebody black up there, or Buttigieg, if they're the LGBTQ community. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they learned their lesson from this last one election because that's what they ran on. So I think that it's going to be, again, I think it's going to be a younger, more vibrant white male that's going to be up there. I honestly think that Americans on both sides of the aisle are tired of the old white men that are up there, whether it be Trump or Biden. I mean, we've had what's this 12 years of just old men up there that are they don't know what the will of the people really is anymore. They've been in politics too long. Well, except for Trump, but I'm just saying he's been rich for too long, so they don't know. And I think that we need some younger blood up there. That's what we're going to see next election.
Okay. Well, as for me, who do I think in 2028 will be our president? After listening to all the things you guys put up there, I know basically white suburban women. That's who elect our president most of the time, and I'm gonna have to go with Gavin Newsom.
Mm.
I'm just saying that it's usually that charmer from Barack to Trump to it's usually that charmer that gets those white suburban women. That's usually who comes out with it. I gotta say, I know a lot of people don't like him, but I think he speaks well. He speaks well enough to pull it off. I mean, he's got the look, everything, so if he puts some policies together, I mean, he got a good shot.
How is he going to escape his horrible, horrible, awful record?
Same way Trump did.
Same way anyone else does.
Yeah, I mean, Trump was
record.
bankrupt 7 times, but you still send him money. You'll still invest your money with him. He's a great businessman. I hear it all the time.
It's
A casino,
It's
no less.
profiling, Riz.
Failure is always a rung on the ladder to success, isn't it? But what we see, what we see with Gavin Newsom, that's a whole other beast right there, though.
I don't think Gavin Newsom failed upwards nearly as high as Trump failed upwards, but that's a different story.
And I think the consensus is. I think the consensus too is that I don't think anybody really likes a lot of the people that are being named. Like, I'm not a Gavin Newsom fan or anything like that at all by any means.
But you just know how it works, and that
Right, that's what I
charmer,
think, yeah.
he speaks well. I mean, he got all the tools. Like, I
You
mean,
gotta
they're
have the
going
it
to try to
factor.
bring that California economy into it. But I think if he can, like I said, if he can come up with some issues, I think he can override that.
It's
And
an it
that's
factor, man.
that's where the charm comes in. Yeah.
Right. Every president had it. I mean, Trump had it. Obama had it. I mean, Bush had it. Reagan. I mean, it's the
Clinton.
it factor. There's something. Yeah, Clinton. It's the it factor. Lots of times it doesn't even come down to policy. It's just if they have that it
It
factor.
really doesn't.
It
It really
they're
doesn't.
likable. Yeah. So I hear you, brother.
All right. Well, man, that's the show. We appreciate it, folks, and we're going to get out of here. Peace out, guys.
Peace.
All right.
All right.
Have
Till
a
next
good
time.
evening, everybody.